Good evening and welcome to Economically Empowering Our Community. As always, if it's Tuesday at 5:30 or 5:35, then it's going to be Marcus and Socrates bringing you information that you can't find anywhere else. Now, today's show is going to be a very special show. So I want you to sit back, take some notes, learn a few things about what we're talking about. If you're watching us on YouTube, then go ahead and subscribe to the program. Hit the notification bell so that you won't miss any of these shows. If you're watching us on Facebook, do the same thing. Subscribe, send us stars, support this channel. This is the kind of content that you won't find anywhere else. We're being viewed all over the world in 139 countries or more. Our staff is growing. Our momentum is growing. Our engagement is growing. We are now getting over 380,000 views per month on this network. So we're growing and we really appreciate your support and continue to do that. As always, you can call us at 601-387-2684. Now, let me turn to my co-host, Marcus Wallace.
Good evening. Good evening. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Marcus. How have you been?
Man, awesome. I had a great holiday weekend and got some rest and ready to go. And, as we promised the listening audience that when we do have guests in house, there will be some impactful conversations. And I'm excited today because we got the former mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, Mr. Tony Yarber.
Mayor, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, Mayor.
Good. Ms. Garrett, how you been?
I am well, thank you, Tony.
That's good news. Glad to be here, y'all. I appreciate the invitation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, before we get into a lot of topics and unpack some information today, Mayor, why don't you briefly tell the listening audience, for those who may not know who you are? I know a lot of people know who you are, but as Mr. Socrates said, we have a listening audience that's outside of Jackson and Mississippi. Yeah. So let them know who you are.
Well, my name is Tony Yarber. I'm a former mayor of the city of Jackson. I was also a city councilman who represented Ward 6. Currently, I am a director of schools for Midtown Public Charter School District. I'm pastor of Relevant Empowerment Church. Try to be a good daddy and husband on the rest of the day. So that's what's happening. I'm glad to be here because I've been paying attention to those. So I'm one of those 300 and more thousand of folks. And I remember when this was just getting kicked off. So it's good to be here and to see the evolution and how you trying to turn this man into an anchor for LBT or somewhere.
Right. Well, Marcus, you and I were wannabe mayors. We both ran for mayor, but Tony was actually the mayor of the great city of Jackson.
That's right.
And so when we get right into it, Mayor, we give mayors a difficult time sometimes because in our minds, they don't get enough done. Marcus has a saying, the math doesn't always math.
Right.
And we want and need and expect so much more. So I'd like to know from you, just how difficult a task is it to be the mayor of Jackson?
I think the mayor's job is dynamic. And it's dynamic because it's not one thing. It's not two things. It's not three things. It's a dozen or more things all at the same time. The best way I can think about it is you're rebuilding a plane while you're flying it, and you're hoping that you don't crash, because that's a win. You want to get stuff done because that'll be a win. But at the same time, you're trying to balance the expectations of all of these folks and all of the things with whatever the promise you make people and the promise that you made to yourself. But it's dynamic. It's rewarding. But I don't want to say that. I don't want people to leave with the idea that being mayor of Jackson is a damning situation, because it's extremely rewarding when you can get things done and make stuff happen.
Yeah, that's true, and I can kind of attest to that a little bit. I tell folks all the time, although I was a mayor of a small town, the rules and the regulations and responsibilities are the same. And in some cases, small town is a little harder because you got to stretch the penny that they only give you a penny in a small town, and you got to stretch it. The thing that I would like to ask you, though, from your perspective of the landscape of the city of Jackson prior to you becoming mayor, when you were mayor, and now looking at what we are facing over the last couple of mayors that we've had, what is your outlook and perspective of the city of Jackson, and how you think we are at a standstill, or just exactly what's your perspective on that?
I think it's like Jackson is always like we'll get started, we get a head of steam, and then something will happen, and it'll snatch that momentum away, and then it's like we're always jump starting the car. That's what it has felt like, and not just from an iteration of Mayor Harvey Johnson until Mayor Horn, but even prior to then. And I think people have a misconception of 1997 and prior to 1997, prior to Mayor Harvey Johnson coming. And so I think that at this particular point, we're at a place where just my observation, I'm not really invested in, to be honest with you, I'm not as invested in the administration and what they're doing, but I'm observing from afar and paying attention to things. And so when I can see announcements that are being made, like was made today about the street work that's going to be done, I think $100 million worth of work that's being planned. Well, I've been here before. We've seen plans unveiled. The first question that I asked was, where's the funding going to come from? And so I don't see a change in the funding landscape. I don't see where Jackson is in any better position to fund these kinds of projects, or that we put ourselves or created an opportunity where the kind of funding that we need to do this kind of work can get done.
Let me ask you, just to add on to that, when you were in the mayor's position, and opportunities come available, such as we're talking about the $100 million they're talking about spending.
Yeah.
Back when you were mayor, did it pop up in your mind as to, now how can I activate the local business community into these opportunities? As the mayor creates ideas, bring them forth. Is that something that you, as a public servant, has always been a ingredient that you always thought about, as to, because sometimes I feel a lot of our leadership don't think about that component, as to how do we make sure, basically, how do we make sure our local folks eat?
Mr. Garrett used to always talk about the black business class, black business class. He say that all the time. And while I did not get it then, my perspective and understanding of that now is much deeper. So when I compare the depth of knowledge now to then, what I'll say is that at that time, yes, I had the desire to. It was a will that I had, but I don't think that the process that I used was the best process. I think that if you're going to really, really, really do something like that, then you've got to be targeted in your local participation plan. You can't just simply say, here is a contract we're getting ready to let, and if you come here, you got to get a local partner. Like, that was backwards. backwards. It was always backwards. And so that idea was an idea that I adopted. And I thought that the perpetuation of that idea, that you come here, you create a partner and get them enough money where they can get out the way. No, you come here, we've got primes here, and you can come and be a partner on a local primes project that you bring value to. So hindsight is 2020. But I think that, yes, that is something that I woke up thinking about. But in terms of the process, I think we could have done a much better job of that.
Well, Mayor, let me get right into the numbers because, Mississippi, we're having a hard time. We're the poorest state in the nation. We struggle every day. And the Black business class is dwindling. It's becoming smaller. It's not growing. And so one of the things that just jumps right out at us is that the state of Mississippi spends for contracting expenditures $5,519,862,146 annually. Of that $5 billion, white men get 96% of those dollars. And then white women get the other 3.5%. That leaves Black folk in the state of Mississippi, and Jackson is in the state, only get $40 million out of $5 billion. Man, that don't sound right.
No, and it's I go back to, again, this is data and data points that I've been hearing from you for a long time. You know what? There's been not any variance from year after year after year. I know I've been hearing you say this at least 10 years. So for the last 10 years, there's been no variance in the data that he's talking about. So what does that say to us? That says to us that voting power is important, because if the people who run those state agencies, if the people whose responsibility is to create policy around how they spend money with minorities, if those folk don't look like us, if those folk don't have our best interests at heart, then we're going to keep seeing this same non-varying data every year.
It is terrible. Marcus, how much of this 40 million that did go to Black folk did you get?
I can't I can't remember, to be honest with you. And I said, a show or two back, I can clearly see why there's a lot of backbiting and a lot of ego tripping and all of that among the African-American business community. I can see why, because we fighting for crumbs.
Yep.
We fighting for crumbs. And that's one of the things that I really like about this show, Mayor Yarber, is the fact that, we're educating. You're educated, so you really can respect, and understand what we're doing. We're not just talking. A lot of shows, a lot of people just talk. We're breaking these numbers down. People lie, but numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. Let me say something real quick, though, because when I was mayor, and people, this is something that, both of y'all can talk about or speak to, but there was an enormous amount of pressure that I got as mayor around stuff like this, because when we were trying to be intentional and we're going to create RFPs that are, they're doing what we're asking them to do through these RFPs, we got so much pushback from majority white firms and companies about how we were trying to not redistribute wealth. That wasn't what we were doing. What we were doing was trying to level the playing field and make local folk in Jackson the priority in terms of how we got their work. But y'all, when I tell you we got all kind of pushback from stuff like that, we got all kind of lawsuit threats. And first thing I would always say was, well, don't y'all have 4 contracts already? And when I come back and say, y'all already got $25 million in contracts, what's the problem? That's real.
And see, the other thing that I want people to understand, we're not advocating, to continue to put money in our pockets to go buy Mercedes and things like that. we're looking at it we're up top looking at it, looking down at it, because we know and understand that if the dollar does not turn in this city, it's going to eventually affect a lot of folks. You're an educator. I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yep.
When the last time you seen a company or business adopt a school in this city?
I've not heard about public announcements.
But the way it was going years ago is totally different now.
Yeah.
So let me say this. No, you don't see the businesses getting involved in our community. But the reason that we put pressure on our elected officials, and especially the Black elected officials, we put pressure on them because we realize the struggle. We realize that you're getting pushed back, that there are those that are threatening to sue you individually and the city for trying to level the playing field. We realize that. So, but we have to keep putting that pressure on you so that they'll know that you have another side over here that's in your ear, that's screaming, that's talking to your heart, that says that you must get things done.
Sure.
Now, my brother and my close friend, my fellow Arcanite, Willie Simmons, is commissioner, the central commissioner for the MDOT, Mississippi Department of Transportation. And when he went into office, he said he was going to raise minority participation. Now, he went in there with a commitment to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know him personally. I know where his heart is. He went in there with a commitment to do that. And in 2023, MDOT awarded 2.2% to minority contractors. They do billions of dollars. 2.2% went to minority contractors. And this is data coming straight from the Mississippi Link newspaper. A shout out to Jackie Hampton, the publishing owner over there, Chris Young, the writer, who's doing an excellent job in our community. He's Blacker than any Black person I know.
I hear you.
Okay. And so he says that in 2025, though, expenditures dropped to 1.48%. We are losing ground, Mayor. And if we don't come up with a plan to turn this around, future generations won't have the opportunities that Marcus and I were afforded.
Sure.
They'll never see that. Sure. They'll never be able to have a $20 million contract to working like Marcus had. They don't understand those kind of numbers. And so if we don't do something, this is going to get really bad. I'm going to shift now and say that we're all up in an uproar about redistricting. And I'm not exactly sure that our audience understand how to connect the redistricting battle to the economic battle that is going on. White folk are fighting for the dollars.
Yeah.
They're not drawing lines because they just don't like Black people. They're drawing the lines because they want to control all of the money.
Yep.
97%.
97%.
And so what's your thought on this uproar about redistricting?
I think redistricting is chickens coming home to roost. I think it's what we've been saying for 20 years. Y'all, we got to vote. Y'all, we got to make sure that we take care of the church's money. We got to make sure that the representation is doing what the constituency is asking them to do. But as it relates to how it's going to affect, I think besides them wanting, of course, get rid of Benny Thompson, but Benny Thompson represents a dollar figure as well.
Yeah,
he represents a lion's share of the amount of money that comes into the state of Mississippi. And so right now, if you look at the amount of support that he's brought into the state, into the space, again, they're not worried about him alone. They're worried about how those dollars are directed. They're worried about Jackson being able to get a Tiger grant and spend that amount of money and say who's going who's gonna get a piece of that pie. So I hear you loud and clear, and I'd be interested to understand, because see, normally I'm going back to Willie Simmons. Normally, if it's a plan that you have, you also got you also have a budget, or you've got a something, policies or something that when you get there they direct those. I'd be interested to know what happened.
Wow, I would too. Now, I understand that Willie is one of three.
Sure.
He doesn't have the power of a mayor.
Sure.
I mean, the mayor is probably the most important person in the Black business community of all elected officials.
Yeah.
That position has a certain amount of autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't appreciate the former mayor Chokwe, but when he gave so much of the power of the mayor's office away with this, he got forced into this blind process where he wasn't going to have any influence over the process, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And, you know, we didn't send him down there to be not involved. We sent him down there to have your thumb on everything that's going on. So he gave away a lot of his power. Now, Willie, he's got one of three, so he has to get votes to be able to do something. How did you get white folk to work with you when you were mayor?
That's a good question. Well, the first thing that I wanted to be sure that I did was, you don't go in a room and the first thing that you talk about are your differences. And so what I wanted to do is to, first of all, understand why white folks down at the State House did not want to give Jackson money, did not want to support legislation that would fund things in Jackson. So I wanted to understand that. So I started having real conversations with people and asking them why, and they were not shy. One gentleman said to me that Jackson was a black hole, and before I listened well, I thought he said something else, but he was talking about the city's coffers. And so the next thing I wanted to understand was, well, what are the things that we have in common? So during that time, what we had in common was the people at the State House were as upset about the streets and the condition of the infrastructure in and around the Capitol as anybody else. So what we wanted to do is you find common ground and you say how you leverage that common ground, but you don't go in the room. Of course, I know that I don't like the presidential policies that Tate Reeves may support. He definitely didn't like President Obama, but that ain't the room where we're gonna hash those things out, because those things don't directly impact the people in our community, in our neighborhood. And so that's how we did that, and that's how we were able to get support from the state that we did.
Well, I want to send a shout out to Congressman Thompson. You brought him up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that redistricting is all about the removal of Congressman Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you hear.
And that's what it's about. And Congressman, I've gained so much respect for him, not only for what he's brought into the district, but when there was the uprising, the January 6th uprising in Washington, D.C.,
Yep.
the brother sat there and didn't run like everybody else.
He's from Bolton.
Bolton,
you're in Bolton.
He stood his ground, and he stands his ground all of the time. And I want to send a shout out to him. Now we support him and his reelection, and critically important that the folk fight this redistricting, because from a business standpoint, we'll get hurt if we lose Black representation.
Yeah.
Right. Well, before we move to the water issue, because that's something we definitely want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
I want to know, with this redistricting and this, get out the vote initiative that we're trying to push, how you as a clergyman, how do you feel, or do you feel that you all could play a very impactful place in that, and how do we get everybody engaged and try to get all the churches on board? Because I personally think that could be very impactful, with the the ministers in the pulpit, really pushing this and driving this thing about the importance of voting and everything?
Yeah, I think that there are opportunities with the people in churches. I think in terms of the church as an institution, I think that that's a good rallying place. It's a good place to capture people, to see that's where the people are coming together. I think that pastors who are civically inclined, pastors who are politically inclined, I think that they've got to be informed. So I think they've got to have the best information. So the pastor's he's like the mayor at the church. And because he's got a lot of autonomy, because he's got a lot of influence, he needs to be able to use that influence with the best information that he or she can have. Now, at our church, we don't do a lot of political stuff. If you come and you're running for something, we recognize you, we say what you're running for, and we give you an opportunity after church to fellowship and talk with the people. Because at the end of the day, those are the people who are going to be voting. And you just gotta figure out where they are. That's a church, and then you got to figure out who those pastors are and what their motivations are. And then you organize them and get them the best information that you can.
And then too, I would say, of course, I'm not a pastor, but I think every pastor definitely has to know their congregation and know how to present the right message and present it the right way as it relates to, this political stuff.
Yep. And I think also, I'll say this too. I think pastors have to, y'all pastors, if y'all are going to get into endorsing people and all of that stuff, first of all, I would tell you to know what you're endorsing. There's nothing that frustrates me more than to see a reputable man or woman of God endorsing somebody, and I'm looking at them like, Lord have mercy. Who did anybody tell them? Why did nobody call them and have a conversation with them? So I just encourage you that before you do that, reach out to somebody who could help you with that, who knows a little bit more about that. So that way you're not assigning your reputation and as collateral and support for somebody who's, we know that they're not going to get the job done even if they get elected.
Church business is real business.
Church business is real business.
Y'all make payroll.
That's right.
Y'all got the same challenges that Marcus and I have. They're running our own business. Church is real business. I don't know how you balance theology with politics.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that there's an inherent conflict there.
Yeah.
I may need to be educated on that, but to me it seems there's an inherent conflict. When you're in those smoke-filled rooms with these people of another vernacular, of people that have a different persuasion, people that want things that are totally different than what you know is right for your community, somebody needs to curse.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be able to say, as Kenneth Stokes said, hell no, hell no to the no. What he said.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Somebody needs to be able to say that, and I don't know if pastors are able to do that.
Had we had this conversation, 5 years ago, I probably would have had a really warm debate prepared for you. But as I reflect on my spiritual growth, my growth in Christology and other things, I would say to you that I would never do politics again and be serious about leading my church. I would say that if I had to do it over again, that I would have made a conscious decision to not run, or to run and not be a pastor, because the conflict is inherent. The temptation, either way, either you're extreme on one side or you're extreme on the other side, but either way, there's no balance there. So I think in smoke-filled rooms, first of all, a man of God ain't got no business being in them. He has no business putting himself in a position where his good could be evil spoken of, or putting himself in a position where his character can be called into question. And I think that if you're really serious about one or the other, then you're gonna have to make a decision. You're gonna have to pick your hard. It's gonna be hard to stay safe, and it's also gonna be hard to come back after you've run from that safety.
Yeah, we saw what happened to TD Jakes with the P. Diddy thing. It's just sometimes you're in a space that just doesn't serve you well, and you have to find a way to get out of it. I guess you have to find a way, because there's no way to coexist with it.
There's
so
no way.
You gotta make a choice.
There's no way, and that don't get caught in that pride, folks. Don't get caught in the pride that you can do both. Don't go and find scripture like I did to try to rationalize and justify, because when the scripture says that the people rejoice when the righteous are in charge, it is not talking about politicians. That's not a prescription for you to go. So that's Tony. That's just Tony.
Well, we're up upon a commercial break, and we're going to go to a commercial, and then we're going to come back and continue this conversation. We're certainly going to get into the water authority that Marcus was talking about. We want to talk a little bit about data centers and the impact that they have on our community, et cetera. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at Socrates Garrett ENT.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
And we're back. Thank you that are watching us out there on YouTube and Facebook. Subscribe to the program, hit the notification bell. We want to increase our viewers. You're not going to get this content, these conversations anywhere else other than here on We Believe Digital Network. So we'll get right back into our show. Marcus, you were having a question about water authorities.
Mayor, this water issue has been hot topic around here. But I want you to, before we get into the current stages of things, talk a little bit about what you dealt with as it relates to the Jackson water when you were mayor, because we want to educate the people to let them know how we got to where we are, and so talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Let me frame it like this first, if you don't mind, because the water authority is a part of this conversation too, and kind of how we got here. So years ago, there was a bond that was done under Mayor Harvey Johnson. They did the bond. As a part of that bond, every year after so long, there was supposed to be a rate increase, an incremental rate increase that would happen each year. Well, when it was time for that to start happening, politics would come in the room. And when politics comes in the room, then guess what was happening? Their increase wasn't happening.
Right.
Well, the bondholders are saying, hold on. as a part of this bond agreement, y'all supposed to be raising rates. And so when you keep that can on down the line, then that ends up with the situation where we now have to consider a water a commission, not a water commission rather, but a 1% sales tax and a commission that comes along with that. Well, by the time I got in the office, the commission had been passed, but the commission had not been stood up yet. And so that was the initial work that we walked into, was the standing up of the commission. And it will be a preview of what we're getting ready to see with this water commission. So we knew coming in that the state of the water, because we've gone through, I call it the media blitz that got the 1% sales tax passed. That's when every time it was a boil water notice, you knew it, like they was blasting it. A boil water notice was happening every 25 minutes, but what that was doing was, making the people anxious about getting out to vote for that change. Well, long story fast, when we stood this commission up, this commission's responsibility was to create a master plan funded through the money that would be raised, and then get projects out and getting them done. So we were just at the surface of seeing multiple water crises. We were seeing, one time I was in Utah and got a phone call that the water plant, I think fuel maybe, had shut down and it was down and the pressure had dropped. And so those are things that were happening almost weekly, and it was chronic, and it was all the time. And you didn't ask me this, but a lot of people, what they don't realize is the difference between a place like Jackson and Madison is always ready to do something new. A Jackson mayor is always responding to today's emergency, and it's an emergency 3 or 4 every day. Yep. And so when you're constantly chasing emergencies, it makes it hard to go out and chase the other things. So I'll pause there because I know you probably got something to ask as a caveat.
Well, my thing is, I personally don't like authorities, commissions, and boards, because even before we got to this water authority issue, I've always felt that was simply a way of, once again, them trying to control and have power.
Yeah. Now,
ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get these numbers. As you can see, when we talk, we come in with stats. And it's my understanding that since the 1% commission has been in existence, it has accumulated about $197 million, and only about $5 million has gone toward Jackson. Now, we're gonna get the accuracy on that to make sure, but that is my understanding.
Well, let me chime in there. I think that it all went to Jackson, in Jackson proper, but 70% of it went to Ward 1 and Ward 7.
Right. Okay.
And so your concept here is that when you put a commission in place that is chaired by white people, not run by black people, and I don't know, Mayor, what role the city council played. Did the commission present any work back to the council for approval, or how does that work? Or is it just completely autonomous?
Yeah, I don't know if y'all ever paid attention to my relationship with the commission when I sat on the commission, but it was very tumultuous, and it was tumultuous primarily because of the tug of war about authority and whose role it was. And I was not going to allow Pete Perry to usurp the authority of the city of Jackson, even though he lived in Ward 7. And so a lot of the problem would be this. We presented to the city of Jackson, presented to this commission a very thorough infrastructure plan, an infrastructure plan that the National Water Council had stamped its approval on, and they would not approve it. But what they did do, after we had gotten started, we had hired a Jackson project manager, African American company, project managing group, who was then charged with doing the same. And when I tell you that created the biggest kind, that's what I mean about the kind of pushback, and the pushback would be coming from within. You asked about the council. At that time, the council was very interesting in that it at times seemed to support the commission in some of the things that they were doing. But to answer your question solidly, what they presented to the city council or presented as a plan was a 2-page document that dictated how we were supposed to spend the money. Did you hear what I said? It is not a plan on streets, not a plan that said we're doing these streets in Ward 1. We did that. Our plan did that. Not we're going to work on these water mains, these fire extinguisher, not that stuff. But this is how y'all are going to spend this money.
And as your words,
today,
as your words you used
on.
a few minutes ago, that's backwards.
That's backwards.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah, and they're still operating that way. And I will never forget having a meeting during the transition, and I said solidly, "You have got to get that commission under control, and don't let Pete Perry take this commission." But he's got it.
He's got it completely.
He's got it.
I thought that the commission would have some type of sunset. It should not be, something that just goes on forever.
Sure.
And if we be honest about it, if this authority were to go through with the state, it would be worse than the commission. So the decision making part of it, Jackson wouldn't have really any say so.
So when we were in office, I know it was in 2016, 17. This is when a lot of conversation started percolating again about taking over. Okay, so this takeover conversation has been happening for a while. Well, we knew this conversation was happening, and it was on top of the fact that we were in the middle of litigation with MDQ and the West Rankin Utility Authority, because they were trying to build a water plant. And we knew that if they built that water plant, that it was just a cascading effect to dilute the ability for Jackson's control. All right. Well, we also knew that was going to be used against us as leverage for an authority. So what we did was, because we'd already been told, it had already been discussed in WRUA meeting, it had already been discussed in the levy board meeting. They were already talking about it. So what we did was we sat down and said, okay, let's draw up what an authority could look like. And we created the skeleton of an authority. And I cannot remember right now the exact specs, but I think it may have been something like a 9-member committee, with Jackson having like 6 people on the committee, all right, on the authority. And we tried to get ahead of that. We had a meeting out at West Rankin Utility Authority. We presented this plan. The lawyers were there. And when we got there, once that was done, you know what they told us? When we got done presenting, their words were, "The train has already taken off." So this has been happening.
May I go back? You mentioned the bondholders.
Yep.
Our viewers don't understand city government and how it's financed, and the enterprise fund and things of that nature. Walk us through how a city functions and where it gets its revenue from, et cetera, et cetera.
So the city gets their revenue from taxes. And then they get their revenue sometimes from grants. But in this case, we're talking about what's called an enterprise fund, which is an actual business that the city runs, which is how we had the Jackson Water, the water company that we had. So in situations like that, when you are paying into this particular enterprise, you can leverage those enterprise funds to get more money. In this case, we're talking about a bond issue. in this bond issue, bondholders or people who invest in the money pool that you're going to pull from, they do that with some conditions. One of the conditions in this case was that water rates will be raised so that they can get their money back and the money that they plan. It's an investment. So they're not just, they ain't trying to be nice. They're trying to get a return on their investment. Right. And one of the ways that they guarantee that was through the bond. Well, through all of that can kicking, if you look at your water bill right now, you will see that if you are a regular residential water person, you got a $40 assessment. That's a 40. I guarantee you that had that $40, that had those some of those issues of kicking the can down with those water rate increases, that we wouldn't see this $40 that's having to be done in one place. And I'm saying that because if you're paying that, what's going to happen is over time, guess what you're going to end up doing anyway? Over time, you're going to end up paying an additional $15, $20 on your water anyway. That's what you're going to end up doing. But if that's not happening, when the third party comes in and they take over it, now the third party's got to support their operation, which is an aside from the city's operation.
Well, I don't really think our viewers understand the enterprise fund and how all that works and how much money we're talking about. If an authority takes over Jackson's water, the revenues associated with that is probably larger than any other fund that this city has. And if our mayor is not, and our city council are not in charge of the water, and they're not in charge of the wastewater, and they're not in charge of the police department, it seems to me the mayor doesn't have as much to do as a one that had to run everything associated with that. And so I don't like authorities, and because I think it usurps the power of the elected official and someone that should have our interests at heart. And so, you got the airport authority that's sitting there, that's an independent board. You got the Jackson Public School Board, that's an independent board. You got the 1% Sales Commission, which is an independent authority. You got the Capitol Police, which is an independent authority. And so there's nothing much left for Jackson to manage other than the zoo and maybe some street repairs. Marcus?
That's it. And the zoo is definitely on its last toe.
So I want to enlighten our viewers a little bit, Marcus. We have talked a lot about the problems and the issues, but we haven't put forth any solutions or any alternatives out there. And those of us in the business community have ideas. When you ran for mayor, you had ideas on what you wanted to do. And so did I. And so one of the reasons that the city finds itself in this trap is because they don't have the revenue to maintain the water department and all of the money that's required to do that, and then bring it up to code and up to date at the same time. I mean, we got the $600 million from EPA, but it's still not enough money. And so one of the things that I want you to talk a little bit about is how the city could fund this activity. And we talked to Porter Bingham.
Right.
And he had some ideas and concepts.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, with the situation that the city is in and needing to, bring the system up to par, the revenue as far as the, water bill, stuff like that. I've heard about P3s that have been successful in other municipalities and counties. And that if the city is going to come with a workable solution, I think that they're going to have to look at something like that in order to basically get the judge to understand or give him some assurance that they'll be able to work this thing out instead of going the state route.
And so the state says if they put forth the authority, they're going to bring 200 million to Jackson. Wow. Not enough, but that's what they said they're going to bring.
And they're going to bring 200 million worth of headaches. Because again, we won't have any control.
We won't have control. So our city needs to have a way of financing its infrastructure repairs and maintaining all of its assets. And it's going to have to do that in a public-private kind of a relationship, or we're going to have to raise taxes on a burdened city, people that are already burdened with taxes.
Well, I just want to say I'm really glad to hear the appetite for P3s are changing, because that's not where the city has been, and that's not been the appetite of the politicians in the city. And I'm gonna be frank with you, I think that's held us back a lot, and it's put us in some of these situations, because when we've talked about, and I'm gonna give you an example. We talked about public-private partnerships with wastewater, all right? And so 10 years ago, you get unelected. No, I'm serious. You would get unelected for saying something like that. You could say, hey, we're gonna bring in we want to do a P3. This company's gonna come. They're gonna bring $1 billion of worth of wastewater treatment investment into the city. We can even structure, but in that P3, in that agreement, to be sure that there is minority participation, that it does reach a threshold that we all agree on, that we do get the community buy-in, the community investment, where they might build some playgrounds, whatever the case may be. So we can do all of that in a P3, but I think that people got to understand that the misconception around P3s has always been that, well, you're giving away your control. Well, you're not just, it's not about giving away control. In a lot of cases, you're giving away the liability, or you're offering the liability for whatever the investment is. And so I'm just glad to hear that attitude is different.
And anybody in the listening audience, if you want to do some research, Prince George County in Maryland is a good example of a government entity that went with the P3, and it's been very successful from my understanding and what I've read on it, and so, hopefully, like I said, they will be willing to entertain some creative methods, because I don't see the city being able to handle what's got to be done, or, I just don't see it happening.
If the city doesn't present a funding mechanism to the state and to the judge, it's going to find itself vulnerable. And so it has to come up with things of that nature. And I look forward to the day when Mayor Horn and the city council leaders, Brian Griselle, will get in a room and say, let me bring all my talent in my city in a room. Let's bring Tony Yarborough. Let's bring Harvey Johnson. Let's bring Chokwe. Let's bring our mayors to the table. Let's bring our business community to the table and say, these are our problems. We need to come up with some solutions. I look forward to that day. It hadn't happened yet.
And I do too, because I do believe we got all the talent we need right here in this city and county to make to come up with solutions. Or if we don't, it's enough of us that know how to go out and find it and bring it back. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Yep. Instead of allowing people to come in here, give us the homework assignments. Let us go out and bring it back.
Yep.
That's absolutely right. I know we're running short on time, but it's so much to talk about. We don't have you often, so we're going to run a little bit over. But I want to talk about the airport authority takeover and how you see that playing out with the city of Jackson. And I want to talk about data centers, which seems to be really taking all of the air out of the room right now.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you remove, and I'm just going back again to what I talked about in terms of your question about how we got things done with white folks. But I think that hostility never works as a first or second or third resort. I think that statesmen, folks who are diplomatic, I think you need to find them and you need to send those people in those rooms whose job it is to find common ground and scaffold that common ground to workable actions and solutions that you can take back and tell your folks, look what I did. Now I know a lot of people give a lot of flack to our good friend in Vicksburg, Mayor Flaggs, but Mayor Flaggs got the sauce. Mayor Flaggs understands his one job is to bring resources to Vicksburg. His job isn't a daddy Vicksburg. His job ain't to be their pastor. His job is to orchestrate and build an ecosystem where businesses thrive, taxes are being paid, crime is being fought, and children are learning in school safely.
Oh yeah,
that's that's what's happening. So to that point, the airport board, I think that we'll see much of the same. I think that the hostility that is there has, and then not just the hostility, but the opportunities that some folks see in the airport authority takeover. I think that those are a lot of things that we're up against, and I don't know that. I'm not very optimistic.
Wow. Well, let's move on to data centers.
Yeah.
Your Ward 6 council person introduced the ordinance to eliminate the moratorium on data centers the other day at the council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are upset about that. So we don't know as everyday citizens whether we should be afraid of data centers or whether we should be embracing data centers and bringing jobs in our communities and dollars in our communities. We don't have much economic development, but it's an unknown.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hearing and thinking?
I think the fact that it's unknown and we're talking about public health, I think that the president of the council had the right idea to slow down. I'm not sure about the amount of time because I don't know what you'd be doing in 6 months. I think that you do if it's something that, you know, we're going to have to deal with. And I do think you pull together a team of folks who can do some research and come back and inform and talk about what are the potential long-term impacts. What are some of the things that we see that could happen in the healthcare space? What could it impact with children and how they develop? So all those are things that we need to know and understand, because again, y'all, we've seen this before. This isn't a new movie where they move stuff out into Black communities and it is sold as amazing and great. And then next thing you know, your daddy and all his friends got cancer from working there, you know, and it's all related to the work. So I think I think that because Jackson needs the economic development, that I don't think we should ever be shutting down economic development opportunities. But I think that we've got to do due diligence before we do that. It reminds me of the conversation that came up the other day about them putting a skating rink in South Jackson. You heard about that?
No.
Yeah.
So there's a skating rink that's going to be put in South Jackson, and people are in an uproar because it's being put in South Jackson, and they're saying how it shouldn't be there and how to be over here and over there. And it blew my mind because when somebody wants to put a business in an economically depressed area, you don't create hurdles, you move hurdles out of the way. So that's where I am.
If we're talking about my brother there on Raymond Road that wants to put a skating ring.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He called me and he and I had a conversation about that issue. And I certainly, went to my pastor, Ronnie Crudup, and talked about that issue that this business person was having, because we are pro-business.
That's right.
And so we support them as much as we possibly can. So those things that we don't understand, we have a right to be fearful of.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have a right to be fearful of the poverty that's in our community.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't do something, if we don't go out, if this mayor and this administration don't bring economics into Jackson and grow the rooftops, we're slowly fading away.
Yep.
And that's no solution.
No, but I think, I'm a basic dude. So what that meant to me, the basics are you got to build trust, because I'm grateful that somebody trusts being able to put a business in South Jackson, because the data don't support the level of trust that they have. And so as a mayor, as a leader in a community, I think your responsibility is to do what's necessary to develop that trust. So what does that look like? It means that we got to make sure that the infrastructure is sound. We got to be sure that crime is actually being dealt with in a loud way, if that makes sense, because being able to allow the data is one thing, but being able to actually show out loud. Most people think that Mayor Melton killed it on crime stats. It wasn't that he killed it on crime stats. He killed it on making people feel like he was doing something.
He did.
You see what I mean?
He did.
And it wasn't that, he didn't reduce crime by 25, 30%. But one thing that you could count on was that they were gonna be out, and they were gonna be rolling. So you gotta do that. You gotta create that trust. And that trust is what creates the kind of ecosystem that makes businesses want to come. And then finally, you gotta remove the hurdles. You got to remove the hurdles. If you got a group of folks in your planning department and permitting, you need to make it your business to see how you can cut those permitting days down.
Absolutely.
You got to make it your business to figure out why is it that one inspector. Y'all understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
But you've got to really, those are things that you got to invest in, and you got to be intentional about it. And last thing that I'll say is businesses aren't just going to come because we're here. They're not going to just come because we're the capital. Everybody throws that around. That don't make us special.
Right.
We're the capital. No, that don't mean a thing. We've got to create the environment and go and show people that we're creating. Hey, look at what we're doing. Here's what we can do for you. And that kind of stuff it has to be intentional.
Well, Marcus, we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank you for inviting our guest today.
Thank you, man.
You said we were going to have impactful people.
Impactful people. And of course, we didn't get everything in, but Mayor, anytime you got some free time, let us know.
Yeah.
We definitely be calling on you, and with you being an educator, I don't know if you heard in the last couple of shows, we're going to be giving out grade cards. So
okay.
we might get you to help us a little bit on that.
All right.
do a little analytical.
That's gonna be fun.
Talking on that.
Let's do it.
But yeah, man, we appreciate you coming, man.
I appreciate the opportunity.
And, thanks for being a friend, brother.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Indeed. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
man.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Garrett.
Y'all have a good evening and good night.
Good night.